Texas basketball fans are far from strangers to the ups and downs that come with supporting the team they love. But when Shaka Smart's Longhorns suffered the worst loss of his Texas tenure to West Virginia on Martin Luther King Day, the team had officially reached rock bottom. The team lost by a score of 97-59. While this wasn't the worst loss in school history, it's close enough that it's clear that changes are sorely needed. Today, we're going to take a look back at this game and try to figure out the reasons for the team's lackluster performance, finding out what exactly went wrong on one of Texas basketball's darkest days.
That's a traveling violation, and again, the turnover bug biting the Texas Longhorns.
Arguably the biggest issue that reared its head in this game was the Longhorns' 18 turnovers against the Mountaineers. While yes, West Virginia is perennially a top defense in the country and currently sit at 5th in the nation in defensive efficiency, they aren't some sort of turnover forcing machine like Texas made them seem. They currently sit 4th in the Big 12 in turnovers forced per game at 15.83, which is very good, but not world-beating. Texas's turnover issues were self-inflicted for the most part. Just take a look at the Longhorns' first turnover of the game. This is a, less than ideal drive by Jericho Sims that ends with him getting his pocket picked. He's just far too loose with his handle, like you'd expect from a big man who doesn't spend much time dribbling, allowing Jordan McCabe to show us a real-life example of taking candy from a baby when he executes one of the easiest steals he'll have all year. While Sims has arguably been the Longhorns' best player this season, he really isn't effective attacking defenders off the bounce like this, and he shouldn't be put in positions like this that aren't conducive to his strengths. But also, look how stagnant the offense is here. There are zero actions or off-ball movements taking place whatsoever, leading to the team's center isolating on the perimeter and resulting in a fast break look for West Virginia. This is actually a common side effect for committing lots of turnovers. It makes it extremely easy for the opposing team to get out in transition and score lots of easy points, which is a big reason why the Mountaineers managed to score 97 in this game. The poor offense leads to poor defense in a very fluid way. Another turnover-based issue that stood out was the decision-making of the Texas guards once they faced trapping defenses. They were occasionally able to beat this coverage, but more times than not, these possessions ended very poorly for Texas. Here, when trapped baseline by McCabe and Oscar Tshiebwe, Matt Coleman correctly sees the opportunity for Royce Hamm to get the easy bucket on the court. But not only does he end up delivering the pass just too late, allowing the Mountaineers defender to rotate over on time, but he also decides to throw the pass on the side of Hamm's defender, making it pretty easy for the steal to be made. This trapping defense puts a lot of pressure on the opposing ball handlers, requiring quick, decisive decision making if you want to beat it. The Texas guards simply weren't able to succeed in this area all night. The turnover issues weren't all self-inflicted though. Credit is also due to West Virginia and their immense defensive pressure. The Mountaineers defend like a pack of wolves, mixing variations of full court presses and traps, like you saw earlier, all game. This full force attack resulted in a frantic Longhorns offense, often leading to additional turnovers. Familiar with the Mountaineers' pressure by now, Coleman spots an incoming roadblock as he's sprinting down the court here in transition. In his fervor to get rid of the ball, his pass is a little too far ahead of Royce Hamm, and the ball bounces out of bounds. Now you can simply chalk this up to a miscommunication between the two players, where Coleman saw a potential finish of the basket, while Hamm was wary of the two defenders nearby and instead decided to float out to the perimeter, but that would be unfair to West Virginia. This was by design. The nature of their defense forces players into uncomfortable situations where they must think fast and well, and these are the exact types of mistakes that come as a result. The Longhorns don't have guards who are the best decision makers under pressure, so when matched up against a team whose entire defensive philosophy is to put opposing players in these uncomfortable spots, things got ugly quick for Texas.
He's aggressive off the window, no good. And McCabe comes away with it for West Virginia.
When Texas wasn't turning the ball over, they also weren't doing themselves any favors with their poor ball movement and shot selection, which you saw play out earlier in the play where Sims tried to channel his inner LeBron James when the offense stalled out. The Longhorns often go through long spells with too much stagnation, which leads to them having just the 9th ranked offense in the Big 12. They overall just don't have an offense that appears very inspired or creative schematically, and they don't do a great job when it comes to putting their talent in positions to succeed. There's a clear difference in their shot making ability in wins and losses. Texas hit 31% of their threes on Monday and are shooting 28% from deep in Big 12 losses. Compare that to the scorching 45% in their 2 conference wins, and the correlation is clear. But you may be asking, what does that mean? They play well when they make shots and bad when they don't? Duh. But this is actually a common trend with teams with poor offensive schemes. When your system isn't able to generate easy looks, The success of your offense comes down to whether or not you're making difficult jump shots, since that's all you're left with. And when they do, they win. When they don't, like they did against West Virginia, they lose. Poor offense reduces the game to this level of simplicity. Here's an example of what I mean. Here, after crossing half court, Courtney Ramey takes a good 10 dribbles around the top of the key before handing the ball off to Kay Jones, who then drives past the right elbow and takes a contested fall-away mid-range jumper, an objectively poor outcome to this play. During this whole sequence, only 2 of the 5 West Virginia defenders had to make meaningful movements. You're just not going to win many games playing like that. You aren't being creative and forcing the defense to make plays to beat you. It becomes just way too easy for them to sit back, remain disciplined, and watch you beat yourself. This possession halfway through the first half also shows how bad their offense is. This play begins with Andrew Jones running a few ineffective pick and rolls. Notice how there is 0 actions or movement taking place off ball, so the only way they can create an advantage in this play is with the pick and roll. But the defense does a good job switching it and doesn't allow any ground to be made. So then, the ball gets swung around the perimeter a few times, where Ramey and eventually Febres dribbles around the perimeter for a bit, doing a whole lot of nothing, before the latter ends up taking an ugly contested step back 3 that ended up with an air ball. In the simplest words, this is outright awful. Just look at the difference between those possessions and this inbound play. It begins with this guard curling around a double screen, then folding into a dribble handoff between the inbounder and one of the original screeners. Then the man who originally ran off the double screen comes back around this pin down screen in the left corner. This lets the big man who set the new pin down get open under the rim and forces the defender in the opposite corner to rotate over and cut off the easy pass, allowing for the open 3. Although it didn't result in a made basket, this sequence featured significant ball movement from 4 or 5 players, ending in an open look from 3. The way this play had each action masterfully flow into the other was a work of art, and that's how good offense looks, which is a stark contrast to the standing around they did in the previous plays. And eventually, those plays will yield positive results. It's just a matter of players and coaches trusting the process for a full 40 minutes.
That's not his shot. Offensive rebound, what else is new?
In order to score, you need to get the ball. And West Virginia owned the glass on Monday, grabbing a season-high 22 offensive rebounds. It's already tough for the Longhorns to control the boards due to their lack of size and physicality, but Texas makes it even harder for themselves with their lack of awareness and technique. Here, even with a 3 versus 2 advantage in the paint, the Mountaineers are able to grab an offensive rebound. But how so? First, Hepa and Jones are covering Shibwe, a monster of a player. But neither of them are really hindering him at all, rather just kind of holding his arms back. If the ball falls in his direction, it's likely that he would not only have gotten the rebound, but also finished an easy putback dunk. Thankfully, the shot goes to the right, but there are even more issues there as well. While Ramey does make contact with Jermaine Haley here, he positions himself poorly by sticking his back into Haley's hip, which doesn't really have any effect when the ball is in front of both players. Even though Jones does get his hands on the ball, Ramey's lack of imposing contact down low makes it incredibly easy for Haley to get the rebound and create an extra possession and bucket for the Mountaineers. The rebounding battle is not always decided when the shot goes up though, rather through a series of defensive decisions as well. Just take a look at this pick and roll. Coleman struggles to get over Shibwe's really good screen. This forces Hepa to help on McCabe's drive while Coleman recovers. Liddell then helps slightly on Shibwe's roll to the rim, giving McCabe an open teammate on the wing while Liddell's recovery is just too late. Meanwhile, instead of moving in front of Shibwe, Hepa stands in no man's land and watches the ball for just enough time as it tracks towards the rim. This gives Shibwe the opportunity to roll reverse and box out Hepa, even as the rebound goes long. So yeah, you get the idea. The rebounding problems are clear. And at the end of the day, if you aren't playing particularly well on offense or defense, doing well on the boards is paramount in an effort to stabilize yourself and try to reverse that. Texas just has to be better at this. But in conclusion, when your team suffers one of the worst losses in decades, there's lots of reasons why. But when you see the team's rebounding, their lack of creative offense, and their needless turnovers, things start to get more and more clear. And these are just 3 of the multitude of areas the Longhorns must improve in going forward if they want to save their season.